Hi, everybody. I'm Ron, and I'm an alcoholic. And this is Bobby, and he's an alcoholic too. Right, Bobby?
Yes, I am.
Okay. What we're doing here is we're helping people go through the 12 steps in 12 hours. So what we have done is I've been studying the Big Book for over 32 years. My sobriety date is November the 3rd, 1988. And Bobby, what's your sobriety date?
May 20th of 2018.
Perfect. So, we have a lot of years between us both, and we want to explain the 12 steps as simple and as easy as possible. So you will need your big book, and it is the first 103 pages, which I will explain to that later. And what we're going to do is we help people go through the 12 steps in 12 hours in a quick and simple and easy way. So we're going to start off with what you should do is print out the 12 steps in 12-hour sheets, and there's 39 pages, and Bobby will show you the sheets right now. Here's the first page in what we're working, and I'm going to explain this to you. And what we're going to start off with is the disease. If you can see the disease up at the top, is a disease. Every disease has to have symptoms, and the disease is alcoholism or is drug addiction. So it says a disease has to have symptoms, and the Big Book talks about having two symptoms. As you can see, symptom number one is the obsession of the mind, and the second symptom is the allergy of the body. Well, what happens is before we even have the obsession of the mind and even think about drinking or doing drugs, something happens before that. And really, there's actually three symptoms. And the other symptom is the spiritual malady. And we are going to start off with that is the spiritual malady. And it talks about we're going to be unhappy, and we're irritable, restless, discontent. It's actually a warning before I even think about drinking and doing drugs. Something happens before I even do that, and that's the irritable, restless, discontent. Anxiety, worry, fear, ego, lonely. It talks about it in the first column. So then from there, I'm irritable, restless, discontent so much, and I don't know what to do. Well, it goes to the second symptom, and the second symptom is the obsession of the mind. And it says right here and that's the thinking part. So, and I'm going to explain that later, but the obsession of the mind, it's any thought that overtakes all others. So I have this obsession of the mind, and it's killing me, and all I can do is think about drinking, doing drugs, and the next thing you know, if I think about it long enough, I am going to drink. And I'm going to use. And that's the last symptom, and that's the allergy of the body. And it's the allergy means an abnormal reaction to something. So I have an abnormal reaction to alcohol. See, once I take one, I kind of can't stop. I can't control it. And once I have one, I want more. Once I have two, I want even more. Three, I want more and more and more. And that's just how it goes. So this is how the very first page looks. And Bobby can show you once again the paper of it. And do you want to add anything to that, Bobby?
No, that was crystal clear. The only thing is that after our allergy, once the first drink hits our body, we go right back to the first thing is that spiritual malady. So it's a constant cycle, right?
Absolutely.
Session of the mind where I convince myself that I can control and enjoy my drinking. And then once I put a drink in my body, can't stop, can't control it, an endless, hopeless cycle.
Exactly. Thanks for mentioning that, Bobby. So let's turn to page 2. At the very top, it says the website, rightonron.com, loveandservice.ca, and we now have bigbookbobby.com. And of course, that's Bobby, and I'm Right On Ron. So go to any of our websites. It's all going to take you to this website to help you through the 12 steps and 12 hours. And there's loveandservice.ca, just so you know. So, okay, let's start off. Let's see. The program is the 12 steps in the Big Book. And what I'm doing is I took highlights of the Big Book, the first 103 pages, so I can make them very simple and easy. But if you ever see brackets, if it's in brackets, that's just stuff that I've added, just a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of information along the way. If it's not in brackets, it's in the Big Book. And it usually tells you what page it's on also. So, okay, let's get started. The program is the 12 steps, is in the big book up to page 103. That's because the program stops at the 12 steps. The 12 steps ends at 103. The first 164 pages from the big book has never been changed over all the 4 editions of the big book. It's been the first 164 pages, but step 12 ends at 103. So I'm really focused on the program and the first 103 pages. So let's continue. Fellowship is the meetings of a group of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope. The 12 by 12 is used only once you have completed the 12 steps from the big book. The 12 by 12 only gives you a little more in depth in the 12 steps, but the program is in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's the first 103 pages. The principles they talk and mention in the traditions are the 12 steps. Like practicing these principles in all our affairs, they're talking about the 12 steps. The spiritual principles, they're talking about like honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. That's the spiritual principles. Everything in brackets is not in the big book, which I mentioned. Grab a pencil and notepad and take notes and listen to my video and follow it from my sheets together on the spiritual malady in steps 1, 2, and 3, and then explain it when you're finished and tell your sponsor. So what we would like you to do is watch this video, the spiritual malady steps 1, 2, and 3, and we will give you the answers, and then you can fill out that sheet at the end. But so we will get started. Let's get started. So go ahead, Bobby. Can you start reading?
Sure. I'm Big Book Bobby, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Bobby.
So this is the book of Alcoholics Anonymous, the story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. This book has become the basic text. Study and read it daily. This is from the foreword to the first edition. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. So that's the first reason of why they wrote the big book. And there's actually 2, but we'll get to that in a second.
Awesome.
Forward to the second edition. Prior to his journey to Akron, the broker Bill W. had worked hard with many alcoholics on the theory that only an alcoholic could help an alcoholic, but he had succeeded only in keeping sober himself. The broker had gone to Akron on a business venture which had collapsed, leaving him greatly in fear that he might start drinking again. He suddenly realized that in order to save himself, he must carry his message to another alcoholic. That alcoholic turned out to be the Akron physician. This physician, Dr. Bob, had repeatedly tried spiritual means to resolve his alcoholic dilemma, but had failed. But when the broker gave him Dr. Silkworth's description of alcoholism and its hopelessness, the physician began to pursue the spiritual remedy for his malady with a willingness he had never before been able to muster. He sobered, never to drink again, up to the moment of his death in 1950. This seemed to prove that one alcoholic could affect another. Yet it is our great hope that all those who have as yet found no answer may begin to find one in the pages of this book and will presently join us on the high road to a new freedom. Okay, so now we're on page 3, and this is from the doctor's opinion. In this statement, he confirms that we who have suffered alcoholic torture must believe that the body of the alcoholic is quite as abnormal as his mind. It did not satisfy us to be told that we could not control our drinking just because we were maladjusted to life, that we were in full flight from reality, or were outright mental defectives. These things were true to some extent, in fact, to a considerable extent with some of us. But we are sure that our bodies were sickened as well. In our belief, any picture of the alcoholic which leaves out the physical factor is incomplete. So that tells us if we don't have this allergy, that I'm not an alcoholic.
Exactly, you're right.
Though we work out our solution on the spiritual as well as an altruistic plane, we favor hospitalization for the alcoholic who is very jittery or befogged. So treatment, detox.
Yes.
More often than not, it is imperative that a man's brain be cleared before he's approached, as he then has a better chance of understanding and accepting what we have to offer. Do you want to touch on that at all, Ron?
No, you can.
Okay. So basically our mind has to be cleared. I can't, if I'm still drinking, there's not much, say, Ron could do for me to help me with the steps. I actually have to wake up sober. Right?
That's right. Okay. So do you know what? When can we help the alcoholic or the addict? We can give you the exact time and day when we can help somebody. It's when they wake up in the morning. Everybody wakes up clean and sober. That's when we want to help you with the 12 steps. And when there's hope and your brain is cleared by then, and that's when we want you.
Okay. So they believe in themselves and still more in the power which pulls chronic alcoholics back from the gates of death. Of course, an alcoholic ought to be freed from his physical craving for liquor, and this often requires a definite hospital procedure before psychological measures can be of maximum benefit. We believe, and so suggested a few years ago, that the action of alcohol on these chronic alcoholics is a manifestation of an allergy, that the phenomenon of craving is limited to this class and never occurs in the average temperate drinker. These allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all, and once having formed a habit and found they cannot break it, once having lost their self-confidence, their reliance upon things human, their problems pile up on them and become astonishingly difficult to solve. Their ideals must be grounded in a power greater than themselves if they are to recreate their lives.
Okay, I'm gonna do this part. Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation is so inclusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot, after time, differentiate the truth from the false. And what I've found over the years is, what are they talking about? The difference between the truth and the false. And the truth has always been in our hearts, and the false have always been in our minds. So we're going to get into that later. But again, the truth is in our hearts. It's always told us the truth, and the false is in our head. To them, the alcoholic life only seems a normal one. They are irritable, or they are restless, irritable, and discontented. So there you go. That's the warning we get before we even think about drinking and using. Unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort, which comes at once by taking a few drinks which they see others taking with impunity. After they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, the phenomena of craving develops. They pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful with a firm resolution not to drink again. This is repeatedly over and over, unless this person can experience an entire psychic change. There's very little hope of his recovery. A psychic change is, oh, I didn't know that. I love that. And where we're going to get you is to your heart. That kind of gives us that psychic change we're looking for. On the other hand, as strange as it may seem to those who do not understand, once a psychic change has occurred, the very same person who seemed doomed, who had so many problems he despaired of ever solving them, suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol. The only effort necessary being that he required a few simple rules, which is the 12 steps. One feels that something more than human power is needed to produce the essential psychic change. It's true, I can't give you a psychic change, but I can lead it to you and straight to your heart and to this fantastic work. All of these and many others have one symptom in common. They cannot start drinking without developing the phenomenon of craving. This phenomenon we have suggested may be a manifestation of an allergy which differentiates these people and sets them apart as a distinct entity. It has never been by any treatment with which we are familiar permanently eradicated. The only relief is we have to suggest is entire abstinence. That means don't drink, don't do drugs. And the steps will teach you how to do that daily. The general opinion seems to be that most chronic alcoholics are doomed. He accepted the plan outlined in this book, and that's William D. Silkworth. That was Bill Wilson's doctor. That's who wrote the doctor's opinion. That's why it's so important. And then it's an allergy is an abnormal reaction to something. An obsession is when everything oversees that one thought. The first obsession of the alcoholic is we think we can be our own solution. We think we can do this. So wrong. Powerless means lacking power, not listening to God. Whenever you hear power, means God. Powerless means not listening to God. And a malady is a disease, a sickness, or an illness. Okay, so we are going to step 1. So why don't we start step 1, Bobby?
Right
And
before
that's
that,
on page 5.
now that we've went over the spiritual malady, just jump to page 8, and that's going to be where you're going to write down the answers. So right under spiritual malady, just write down restless, irritable, discontent, the unhappiness.
That's all you need to write down is that irritable, restless, discontent, and talk about it at meetings for sure.
Okay, and that's it. And that brings us back to page 5 with step 1.
Yeah, start off step 1, Bobby.
Okay, step 1, the problem is our thinking. And the spiritual principle around this is honesty. Step 1, we admitted we are powerless over alcohol, that our lives have become unmanageable. This is from the pages in the big book, 1 to 43.
Okay, I'm going to stop there just for a second. So, do you really need to read the big book? Sure, you need to read it. You need to study it like we all do. But we really need to do this work. So, do you have to read the big book from 1 to 47? Honestly, you don't. All you need to do is go ahead.
Yeah,
1 to 43.
Yeah.
What, Bobby?
Oh, nothing. You said 1 to 47.
Okay, good. So just pages 1 to 43. And do you need to read it? Like I said, not really. I would rather you do this work, understand the work, and read the big book later, so the big book becomes alive. Okay, I'm just gonna start here. Page 11. Here is something that at work in the human heart, which had done the impossible. Bill was sitting at the table when AA first started. Bill was sitting at the table with Abby. Abby's across the table, and Abby was sober. He had 2 months sober, and he came to Bill Wilson, who was drinking at the time, who actually started this AA, him and Dr. Bob and the first 100 men and women. Well, he looked across the table, and this is what he said. Here was something at work in the human heart which had done the impossible. So go ahead, Bobby. You can finish off this.
Okay, page 14. Faith without works is dead. Page 16. Faith has to work 24 hours a day in and through us, or we perish. Page 20. Moderate drinkers have little trouble in giving up liquor entirely if they have a good reason for it. They can take it or leave it alone. Page 21. The real alcoholic, he may start off as a moderate drinker, but at some stage of his drinking career, he begins to lose all control of his liquor consumption once he starts to drink. Page 22. Once he takes any alcohol, whatever in his system, something happens both in bodily and mental sense, which makes it virtually impossible for him to stop. Page 23. The main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than his body.
Okay, so let me just jump in there. Okay, Bobby, just for 1 second. So the main problem of the alcoholic centered in his mind rather than in his body. So the main problem is our thinking. So that's terrible news. But the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind. So the main problem is our thinking. Go ahead, Bobby.
Okay, page 25. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. So that's again explaining where God is, right? And that's
exactly not who God is. Alcoholics Anonymous won't tell you who God is, but they will tell you where God is. And this is on page 25. Our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a place which is indeed miraculous. I love it.
Okay, page 25. One was to go on to the bitter end, blotting out the consciousness of our intolerable situation as best we could, and the other to accept spiritual help. Page 29. Further on, clear-cut directions are given showing how we have recovered. Page 30. Okay, so this is the obsession here. The idea that somehow, someday, he will control and enjoy his drinking is the great obsession of every abnormal drinker. The persistence of this illusion is astonishing. Many pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. That is the insanity that we're talking about.
Okay, so that being said, this is the insanity. This is the scariest part in the big book. It truly is, because most people will say the insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Well, the big book's telling you this right here is the insanity is the idea, and it's coming from your head. It's not coming from your heart. It's coming from your head. So it's the idea that somehow, someday we'll be able to control and enjoy the drinking. To get me? So that's the insanity, but it's coming from your head. And the first two words is really important. It's the idea is the insanity. Thanks, Bobby.
Okay, page 30. We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves. So it's talking about our innermost selves again, that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. The delusion that we are like other people or presently may be has to be smashed. Page 33. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. Page 33. There must be no reservation of any kind, nor any lurking notion that someday we will be immune to alcohol.
Okay, with that being said, is I've taken a lot of women through this, through the program, and women have a reservation. A lot of them do. And the reservation is they do want to drink, but only one time out of their whole lifetime. And that's when they get married. And I've heard it over and over again. So again, if you're a woman in the fellowship of AA, and if you're doing this work, we do not have any reservations. Even when we get married, we drink pop, okay, or we drink sparkling water, but we do not drink ever.
Drinking alcohol just can't be an option. If we know that we are alcoholics, it just can't be an option. That's
right.
Page 34. Lost the power to choose whether he will drink or not. Page 39, will be absolutely unable to stop drinking on the basis of self-knowledge. Page 40, subtle insanity which precedes the first drink. Page 42, I saw that willpower and self-knowledge would not help in those strange mental blank spots. Page 43, once more, the alcoholic at certain times has no effective mental defense against the first drink. Except in a few rare cases, neither he nor any other human being can provide such a defense. His defense must come from a higher power.
Exactly. So that being said, Bobby, what are we going to do? We're going to go to page 8.
Yeah, back to page 8, and that because that brings us through step 1. And you're going to write down under step 1, the main problem is my thinking.
Absolutely. That's all we want to know as sponsors. And we hear in meetings when it comes to step 1 is the main problem is our thinking. And it is our thinking. It is the problem. So okay. I love that. Okay, so let's go to step 2. And step 2, it says the solution is God, to keep an open mind. Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than herself could restore us to sanity. And we know what the insanity is the idea. Big book pages from 44 to 57, we agnostics. Page 44, when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely, or if you're drinking and you have little control about the amount you can take, you're probably an alcoholic. If that be the case, you may be suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer. This is an alcoholic. So the bottom line is if you can't stop and if you can't control it, you are an alcoholic and you're suffering from an illness that only a spiritual solution can fix. At this point here, we have to say, are you an alcoholic? Can you stop? Can you control it? And if you can, you're not an alcoholic. If you can't, you're an alcoholic. Let's move forward. Page 44. Go ahead, Bobby. You can read this.
Okay, page 44. To be doomed to an alcoholic death or to live on a spiritual basis are not always easy alternatives to face. Page 45. Lack of power, that was our dilemma. So lack of God, that was our dilemma. Page 45. Well, that's exactly what this book is about. Its main object is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem. And that is the second reason why they wrote the big book.
That's right. We told you the first, and this is the second. And the first was to show you precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. And here's the second reason. To enable you to find a power greater than yourself, which you know where it is, and where you're going to, and it's going to be in our hearts. Go ahead, Bobby.
Okay, page 47. We mean your own conception of God. Page 47. Do I now believe, or am I willing to believe, that there's a power greater than myself? As soon as a man can say that he does believe or willing to believe, we empathetically assure him that he is on his way. Page 48. Faced with alcoholic destruction, we soon became as open-minded on spiritual matters as we tried to be on other questions. Page 52, we had to ask ourselves why we shouldn't apply to our human problems with this same readiness to change our point of view. We were having trouble with personal relationships. We couldn't control our emotional natures. We were a prey to misery and depression. We couldn't make a living. We had a feeling of uselessness. We were full of fear. We were unhappy. So this is talking about that spiritual malady again. We couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. Page 52. When we saw others solve their problems by a simple reliance upon the spirit of the universe, we had to stop doubting the power of God. Our ideas did not work, but the God idea did.
Exactly.
Page 53. God is everything or else he is nothing. God either is or he isn't. What was our choice to be? Page 55. For deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. So there again, it's telling us exactly where God is.
Exactly. Perfect, Bobby.
Page 55. We found the great reality deep down within us.
Yeah.
Page 56. Who are you to say there is no God? Page 57. When we drew near to him, he disclosed himself to us. Page 57. God restored us all to our right minds. And Ron, do you want to explain the very bottom of the
Yeah, spiritual experience on page 567 in the back of the big book. It says, our members find that they have tapped unexpected inner resource, which they presently identify of their own conception of a power greater than themselves. They're telling you once again where God is, and it's in our hearts. So with that being said, you go back to page 8, everybody, and in step 2, all we're looking for is the solution is God. It's in our hearts, it's in the truth, and it's in prayer. That's all we want in step 2. And that's put that on page 8. Okay, let's go straight to step 3. Step 3 is our daily solution, and that's willingness and made a decision. A decision means choice, just to let you know. So we made a decision to turn our will and our life over to care of God as we understood him. And a decision means a choice, and our will is our thinking, and our lives is our loving actions, just to let you know. So it just shows you another way to live step 3. Big book pages from 58 to 63 and how it works. So we read how it works, and at the end it says, A, that we're alcoholic and cannot manage our own lives. Step 1, B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. That's step 2. And C, that God could and would if you were sought. That's step 2. Being convinced of all of this is you're at step 3. Page 60, the first requirement is be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. On that basis, we're always in collision with something or somebody, even though our motives are good. Page 62. Go ahead, Bobby.
Page 62. Selfishness, self-centeredness. That we think is the root of our troubles.
It is.
Page 62. So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves, and the alcoholic is an extreme example of a self-will run riot, though he usually doesn't think so. Above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. God makes that possible.
Exactly.
Page 62. First of all, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. Next, we decided that hereafter in this drama of life, God was going to be the director. He is our principal. We are his agents. He is the father, and we are his children.
Okay, we're all children of God, people. So we have to love everybody. We don't have to like what they do. We don't have to like what they say, but we need to love everybody because we are all children of God. Keep going, Bobby. Oh, you know what? I'm going to do this. Page 63, please, Bobby. Is more and more we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life as we felt new power flow in. By the time you get to step 3, you know what? We have the spiritual malady. We have step 1. We have step 2. By the time we get to step 3, we have this new power within us, and it's in our hearts. And then this is how you're supposed to like live life with the first 3 steps. This is what happens. As we enjoyed peace of mind, we discovered we could face life successfully. We became conscious of his presence. We became to lose fear of today, tomorrow, hereafter. We're reborn. Now listen, a lot of people say they find faith after doing all the work. Well, right here it tells us by the time we get to step 3, we are reborn. And we are reborn. I am on fire with love by the time I get to step 3, because I see life totally different. We were now at step 3. Many of us said to our maker as we understood him. Let's read this together slowly, Bobby. God.
Okay. I offer myself to thee.
To build with me and to do with me as thy will. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, thy way of life. May I do thy will always. That's the step 3 prayer, and we need to do that every day. And
we should do that daily, every morning.
Yeah, every day. And so what are we going to do now, Bobby? We're going to go back to page 8.
And we did forget just one last thing at the bottom of page 7 in step 3 is faith is the biggest part of step 3, right? And we're going to go.
Absolutely, it is.
And we'll
just
have
because
that.
sorry, Bobby. Just because you got God and I have God in my heart and I'm doing good and stuff like this, that's not enough. I need to have God and I need to have faith. I need to have. Let me go over here. I need to have God and I need to have faith. And that faith helps me go through doors that are usually closed.
Absolutely. So now we're going to go back to page 8, and where it says step 3, we're going to write live in our hearts daily and always have faith.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the end of the first 3 steps. And we gave you the answers. And now what you can do is take that sheet and let your sponsor know what step the spirituality is, what step 1 is, what step 2 is, and step 3 is. And that's the end of this video. Okay, thank you very much.